guys, we're Tempt, and we're so excited to be heading to the studio right now to meet up with John McCurry.
Yeah, John McCurry is an amazing musician. He's a guitarist and songwriter, and he's worked with the likes of people like Julian Lennon and Cyndi Lauper.
So we're going to perform a song with him that he co-wrote with Desmond Child and Alice Cooper, the hit song Poison.
Super pumped, so let's go do it.
All right. Woo!
Hey!
Hello, what's up?
How are you, man?
Good going, good to see you.
Good to see you too. John, nice to meet you, man.
Awesome. Chris.
Nice to meet you, brother.
Zach.
How are you doing, man? Nice to meet you too.
Come on this way.
I went to the 11th floor first just because I thought it'd be something different. Yeah.
Great for you to be here.
Oh, it's great to be here, man.
Yeah, we're really excited.
I'm looking forward to it.
Let's start at like the beginning of the career here. What was the first spark to music? What really started to get you passionate about music and wanting to be like, okay, this is a career I'm going to pursue?
Very late, like about the age you guys are now. I was 21, almost 22. I had been an accordion player in Connecticut in the early 60s, 1960s.
When did you start doing that?
1963 to 69, and I became the Connecticut State Accordion Champion.
Wow.
Which is akin to a person who will never have sex. You know, it's just that.
That's like the cup stacking people, like professional cup stacker.
It could be that, yeah, with maybe miniature bowling thrown in for no reason. And I did that, and I wanted to switch in '69 to guitar when I was about 12. And my father said, absolutely not. It was the one time in my life where he put his foot down. He said, nope, accordion is really unique, and guitar is a passing fad. So it was one of my dad's finest moments.
Wow.
And I said, the hell with this. I'm not playing accordion, I'm not playing guitar, I'm not doing anything. So I waited till I left home and was living downtown New Haven, Connecticut. And I bought a guitar on a whim, like a $200 Les Paul copy. And I taught myself to play, and I was playing in a band in about 6 months.
Wow.
The joke is I pretty much was as good as I am now in the first 2 years of playing. I mean, seriously, I could play everything that I can play now. It was automatic. I could just listen to Jimi Hendrix records, Jeff Beck, and mimic them. And then theory came much, much later. And I didn't even get a full-time gig till I moved to New York in 1980.
So were your parents musicians? Like, why were they so set? Why was your dad at least so set on you playing accordion?
He was just a stubborn dude. He played big band drums with the remnants of the Glenn Miller Orchestra after World War II. Mm-hmm. He was a really good drummer. He had a great feel, and there were big name drummers who used to come over to our house in New Haven, Connecticut, in the '60s, like Joe Morello and other guys that are long gone now. And he'd bring them over, and I'd have to play accordion for them. Like I said, this is so hot, you know? So hot. And he just thought accordion was creative. I was playing concertos, you know, by memory. Mm-hmm. And man, I just didn't want to be doing that. The Beatles were out. Hendrix was 1 year from dying, and I'm still playing accordion. You know?
Well, do you think that helped at all when you switched to guitar and then you were used to kind of like memorizing concertos
I think
and
so.
stuff like that?
I think that was already in my head, and I'm self-taught. So
yeah.
I think that was the deal.
When you first started playing guitar, what was who were your main influences? Like, what really?
Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, a little bit of Jimmy Page, and I love Zeppelin as a band.
Yeah.
But I thought Page was kind of noodly. Like,
now
I don't. But that's what I thought when I was a young kid. You know. Years later, Van Halen was.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was 21 or 2 when that record came out. He's about a year or 2 older than me. And when I heard it, I said, I'm not going to play guitar. Because no one was doing this with the tapping and the whammy bar. I'm like, screw it. I'm not going to do it because this guy's already doing this, and I'm copying Jeff Beck. So you know.
Well, and the tone too of that record. It's crazy.
It was the best he did. He blew up Marshall after Marshall, but it was really great.
So you moved to New York, you said, in 1980.
In 1980.
What brought you to New York?
My girlfriend wanted to do graphic design here. MTV was just starting, and she got a job at MTV. And then she never got another job, and I ended up getting hired for playing in bands.
Were you thinking when she suggested that could be good for you in terms of
No, I wanted
music?
to stay in Connecticut. I was a big baby.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be a big fish in a small pond, New Haven, because I was already starting playing Toad's Place in bands there.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought it was pretty cool. And I was teaching. I can't read a note, but I had 40 students a week.
Wow.
Wow.
Because they enjoyed my company, I guess. And I'd show them whatever
How
song.
do you fit that in? 40 hours a week?
It was the half-hour slots.
Oh, they're half
Did
hours.
those and then play in local bands, you know, so.
So when you came to New York, you were just mainly playing guitar in bands.
Yep.
When did you as a writer kind of start to evolve?
Not till quite a bit later. 84 or 5. My first big gig, and I'm leaving some people out that I'm still friends with, that they're big musicians. My biggest first gig was Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
And when she broke, I went to an audition, and I hated the music, and she stressed the crap out of me because I liked rock and roll.
Yeah.
She's a rocker too, but that record was something else. It was like Lynn drums and
Yeah.
little tiny triad guitar parts, you know, ding, 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 ding. And
Yeah,
I had to learn the parts and then sing with her. Mm-hmm. And then little by little, I started to like her. And then I went on tour with her, did that for a year, the first album. And then she gave me writing opportunities on her second record for True Colors and other things. She worked with a lot of big writers, but she said, you want to write on this? I wrote on this Goonies song. Remember the movie Goonies when you guys were little? Were we even born? No, probably not, right?
No.
Oh, yeah, remember that new film, Goonies? Oh, God.
So was that like just an open audition, or how did you? It was just kind of like flyers went out, like we're auditioning.
A drummer friend of mine said, you want to go audition at the Music Building on 38th Street for this crazy chick. And did you know were you given any material before? They kind of just told you the changes? They played it in the rehearsal studio.
Wow.
They gave us like a cassette to learn. The record wasn't released yet. And man, and I just didn't like it. I'm being brutally honest. You know, I was hoping I didn't get the gig. And she actually said I only got the gig because I had red hair. My hair used to be fire engine red and about as long as yours. You know,
we saw
she didn't like. She wanted. I eventually ended up looking like Lucille Ball on steroids. It was like, you know, up to here with Aquanet.
Look,
We have a picture of the hair.
Yeah, we got it right here.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's unbelievable.
And I smoked then, so I mean, I could have died at any moment.
Wait, catching on fire.
Yeah,
Was it Aquanet?
It was Aquanet. I had like I didn't get a string deal till 2 years later, but I had an Aquanet endorsement.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I got 3 cases. Yeah, it was awesome.
So you got the gig with Cyndi, and tell us about the first tour you went on with her. Was it kind of the first major?
Oh yeah, yes, and it was a small tour compared to where she ended up. We played like the Last Chance in Poughkeepsie. We played Toad's Place. We played what Webster Hall used to be called the Ritz, and it was the smaller room there on 12th Street. And but for me, that was like big time. And we had a tour bus, but we were all on it. The road crew, the band, and Cyndi. And I love her, so this isn't going to be like out on television. I can be somewhat candid because she and I are still very good friends. She's helped my daughter in music, so.
Any crazy tour stories?
Oh my God, yeah, no.
Anything you could tell us?
I mean, probably not. You know, she was under a tremendous amount of stress because it was her first big thing happening. And then we went out to Hollywood and did Solid Gold and American Bandstand.
Sometimes I say he's my brother.
Is it not true?
No.
Well, what is
My adopted brother.
What is his name?
Little Johnny Red McCurry.
Hey, Red, how are you? Nice to see you.
Johnny Carson, like these were the shows, and in a way they were the biggest thing in the world because it was only network TV then.
Here is a unique young singer. She's just leaving for Australia and Japan and going to begin her American tour at the Ritz in New York City on April 19th and 20th. Her debut album is called She's So Unusual. Would you welcome, please, Cyndi Lauper.
And then it was like my parents, my grandparents, anyone alive was watching the Johnny Carson show. And we screwed up a couple of things on the show, like an ending that didn't quite materialize. And so I was the band leader. I don't know how I was, because of the hair, I guess. And she would scream at me, like when something went wrong. I took a beating from her, like serious berating in the bus, like, you know, so I'd sit there and not look up. My best friend in that band was a keyboard player named Kenny Hairston.
Kenny, welcome. Glad to have you here.
And he had long dreadlocks, and he always wore shades, and he didn't talk much. And I got to be really, really close with him. And Cyndi loved him because he was Kenny, he was cool, and he wasn't me. So I would get yelled and screamed at, and Kenny would just sit there like this. And one day he goes to me, I would hate to be you. I love you, McCurry, but I would hate to be you. I'm like, how do I? He said, maybe wear sunglasses and just don't answer her. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work, at all, ever. And we became really close for years after that, too.
And so what record was that for?
That was Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which was already in the can, but I then sang a song called Time After Time with her. Yeah. It was Rob Hyman and Eric Bazillion. It was all the guys from the Hooters. did the record, and my buddy Neil Jason on bass, and I think Jimmy Braylauer did the drum programming, and all these other old guys, some of which are still around. And I sang the duet on Time After Time, so then I was always to the foreground.
Time after time, if you fall, I will catch you, I'll be waiting. Time after time, if you're lost, you can know.
She had me play accordion on one of her records.
Really?
Yeah, and it was a record that a producer named Phil Ramone, whom I did a ton of records with for. Phil was doing it. The song in that record was "Drove All Night," which was written for Roy Orbison and covered by other people. And Eric Clapton, unbeknownst to me, was in the studio with her at Hit Factory with Phil and her for hours and hours and hours. But I didn't know who was in there. They just said, "There's another musician. It's taking longer than it should. Sorry." And I said, "No problem." And I was there to play a choral sitar part, which is like a fake sitar. It's got this little block of wood on it. It really sounds like it was used in 70s disco records.
Yeah.
Like, and so I had that, and I had my accordion. She said, "Red, why don't you bring your accordion and play something funky with me?" I'm like, yeah. Why don't I wear shorts and flip-flops in January and just, God. And so I'm waiting, and the musician who came out was Eric Clapton. And he just looked at me, and I looked at him, I was a huge Eric Clapton fan, and he goes, "Are you next?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Best of fucking luck to you." And he walked out and he goes, "What do you have?" I said, "Nothing. I have my accordion and a choral sitar." And I'm thinking, "Woo." You know, he looked white. He was like so unhappy. Wow. So I realized it wasn't just me, that she could drive even the best person into the ground with her insistence. She would have an idea and not let it go.
So she was very involved in kind of like the production and the arrangements.
The first record she was, and that was done by a guy, Rick Chertoff, sort of was out of her hands. Not to diminish anything she did. She sang on it, but she couldn't say, I don't really like that snare sound, or that what's that stick sound? The second record was all about her. And
and that's the first one you played on?
Yeah, and the second record was Two Colors. It still had a hit, but it was, talk about a sophomore jinx after that. Her first record sold like 20 million back in the day when no one did, you know, at that point. It was even triple platinum in Canada. I think it's only 50,000, but whatever, relative to the day. The second record she had a lot to do with, and it became a long process and a lot of fighting, infighting, and record companies screaming. Because, you know, sometimes it's better to listen to people.
Yeah.
You know, but still have, you know, feel good about yourself. But the more she meddled, not meddle is not the right word, the more she took over, and a lot of guys sat back and said, whatever you say, Cyndi, because she was the man. And we ended up on that very same tour playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
We jumped to like we did a video in the Houston Summit, which was like their baseball or a giant stadium in Houston. I don't know if it's still there. We did Money Changes Everything there.
Because when you started the tour, the record was either just released or wasn't really out, and no one even knew it.
Yeah, we were playing Toad's Place, and we opened for the Kinks at Roseland, which they just tore down. And the Kinks crowd were throwing lit cigarettes at us. And one landed on her like tutu, and I got so pissed off that I threw a beer bottle from my amp into the stage. And so they stopped the concert, and then when they turned the lights back on, we had to stand in front of the Who's backline. So we were like right on the edge of the stage. So people started whipping quarters at us. Oh. And I still have a dent in one of the necks on my guitar where it hit at the 12th fret and snapped three strings. They must have been throwing them like this. Because I was an asshole and I like threw a bottle out. You never do that, you know. Maybe if you were with a Clash or something, but not. You talk of sweeties. She's doing like a little, thing with the ukulele, and they're flicking lit cigarettes at her. And I got so protective over her because I saw this thing burning. My hair, I would have gone up like this, like the straw man, like the Wizard of Oz. It would have been all over.
So after the first tour with Cyndi, you obviously moved on to work with different people, one of which we'd found is Julian Lennon, who were, it's so interesting because he's the son of John Lennon.
I met him right after his father was, he's one of my closest friends. Yeah. He's my little brother. And he's 54, so I show you how old I am. My little brother's 50, and his little brother, Sean, just had his 42nd birthday. And I used to teach Sean guitar lessons when he was 15.
So Did Julian ever feel like a real pressure?
Oh my God, it's all it was, and even to this day, he can't really let it go. He never complained about it because he realized he was blessed with this lineage, but he used to say to me after a bunch of drinks, I'd kind of rather be John McCurry Jr. than John Lennon Jr. than John Charles Lennon, because, and I would offer to trade with him, but he never took me seriously. I'm like, I'll do it.
Well, was there pressure on you too? Because you were like a writing partner of his.
Oh yeah, we got slaughtered for Lennon and McCurry even when they put the names in.
Oh, yeah.
Rolling Stone.
Oh my.
It's an unfortunate last name.
Yeah, Rolling Stone did. They were like, Lennon McCurry, really? Nowadays it just would have been right, you know? Yeah. But it was like, really? And then he wanted to rock harder, and somehow he thought I was the guy to rock, like Billy Idol and Steve Stevens. And so I rocked, and I got good reviews writing, and he got slaughtered.
Really?
He goes from sounding like his father, which is not his fault, it's the way he sings, to Elvis meets David Bowie, because he was singing in a lower voice, thinking it would be rocky, you know? But I loved working with him. I think he's really talented.
And what was that writing process like with him? Like how?
Great, just casual, not like, I've done a lot of writing with stuff where it becomes like a think tank. Lights are up, or lights are in your face, and we sit there and just keep saying, what about, you know? And then you get told to shut up, and, you know. With Julian, it was more just like he played the piano, I play guitar, and see where it...
And just whoever comes
and
up with ideas,
line,
it's as long as...
I'm not a top line guy.
Okay.
I'm the world's worst top line. I never shut up. I can be sort of funny, but I can't write a lyric to save my life. I've been actually told to shut up in sessions. Because I want to make fun of the song. There's some Desmond Child ones where, you know, he said, times are hard for lovers. I've said, times are hard, wear rubbers. He's like, shut up. Stop talking, John, you have to go. Get him out. Yeah, because I do the music, but he, don't talk. And I'd make the other writer laugh and then get thrown out.
And then you worked with Desmond on Poison.
Oh yeah, and a bunch of other stuff before Alice.
Right. So what was your experience like working with Desmond? I mean, I know.
Well, how'd you get together with him?
John Waite, Julian Lennon.
Oh yeah, John Waite.
Phil Ramone, who I met through a friend.
Wait, so was John Waite was after Cyndi Lauper, right?
Right. Immediately after that, and that was a fun gig because he really wanted to rock, even though he's known for Missing You.
And was that when you got on board with him, or was it right after that?
Julian.
Missing You. I mean, when.
Yeah, I did. I worked on the Missing You album, and then I did albums with him. He was also a guy who had the hit, and then he's nobody's son except his father's son, but he never really could repeat that success of Missing You. He did later with Bad English, actually. And
that was
I kind of lost touch with him. Neil Sean, I think Jonathan Cain.
Yeah, that was like 1989 or later.
I was happy to hear that on the radio that he had I think he covered I think it was a Diane Warren song, and Diane was a competitor and writing partner of Desmond.
Yes.
And so somewhere along the line, I used to spend a lot of time in L.A. working on records and in New York. I met Desmond maybe in New York to play on one of his song demos. And someone said, this guy's a big-time writer and going to be a much bigger writer. So he'll pay you like $100 to play on his 8-track, you know, which sounds good nowadays, you know, because things have changed. But, and I said, okay, and I played on some demos, and he goes, oh, you play really well. And now play on this woman, Diane Warren's stuff. Then when they did their records, they called me. So there's pretty nice loyalty there, actually,
yeah.
If you think about it.
And was that first record the Alice Cooper record?
No, first record was up in a studio called Bearsville in a little upstate New York towards Woodstock. And it was Bonnie Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
She had a hit with Total Eclipse of the Heart, way back with Jim Steinham. I'm trying to remember the producer. She was doing a new record, and then this guy from Australia flew in named Jimmy Barnes, who told me he was the craziest dude. I love this guy. He was like a tough Australian married to an Aboriginal woman in Australia who just kept giving him vodka in chilled things. And Desmond didn't really like the musicians to get effed up, even though most musicians did then, myself included. So Jimmy would be like, do you want a nip? And I'd be like, yeah. He had stolies. And have my wife bring in they were in these big ice bowls, baths, and it was vodka. Wow. So we got so messed up. And then he explained to me he was the Bruce Springsteen of Australia. And then I said, what does that mean? He goes, it means there's 100 people have my record. He said, relative to, the way it is here, Because Springsteen's big in a big country. I'm big in a small but continent, And I'm like, okay. But he was a big star there, and I loved working with him. Then we did Cher records. I Found Some Gum. I found someone, it was called.
That was your
it's another
variation
session I
of
got
it?
thrown
Yeah.
out of.
Yeah.
I found some gum. Get out. And God, why am I alive? We did that Cher record and another one. I think it was one where she was on an aircraft carrier in a video wearing like nothing. It was like a bad Halloween thing. Then Alice. Desmond said, I'm having a meeting with, Desmond used to talk like this, having a meeting with this old rocker. Do you know Alice Cooper? I said, not personally, but I know him from songs at 18. And the irony of this was I wasn't a huge Alice Cooper fan. Yeah. I liked other bands way more. I liked Alice. He had Schools Out, and I'm 18. That's all I knew from when I was like your age. And I said, it was like Kiss, And I thought, and he wears makeup, and he used to be really bad on drugs and drinking, and now he's all sober. Great. And so when I met him, he was the nicest guy in the world. Living in Scottsdale, Arizona, collects cars, plays golf, had been sober already for 10 years. And all he asked, he goes, do you remember my third record, the song, whatever, Sympathy for a Squirrel? And I'm like, yeah. And I had no idea. Like, I might as well have been my mom trying to go, oh, sure, Alice. So I had to quickly learn, and there was no social media then, so literally borrowing tapes from people and records, trying to find a record player.
You can go on YouTube and research how to play.
God, I couldn't even call anyone except a payphone. Do you know the Alice Cooper song? You couldn't even do anything, man. It was terrible. That's why I like modern times now, even as an old fart. So I learned what I could, and then we were recording the record, and it was Billy Squier's drummer, Bobby Chenard, Jeff Gollub's dear friend, who passed away a lot of years ago now. It almost seemed like he was going to pass away during the record, but that's another story. We kept him going. And a bunch of other session players whom I brought up from New York City to Bearsville. And he wanted a couple more songs. He wanted an up-tempo, like, Philly Idol song. So Alice came over to my apartment, and he goes, can we just do something without Desmond? And I said, I think so, although why? He said, I just want something like a dumb, straight rock song. I said, oh, thanks. He came to the right guy. And we wrote a song called I'm Your Gun, Pull My Trigger, I Get Bigger, Then I'm Lots of Fun. And he was sober, I was hammered. And it was like, real fast, and then he said, you know what song I like? He goes, I like that Guns N' Roses song. Whatever, Sweet Child of Mine. That was just out then. And he goes, could you do a lick like that? And I said, yeah, I think. And I did a lick that's nothing like that, as you know, Poison. Right? Yeah. It's like completely, it sounds more like the old Folgers theme. I was saying to your dad the other day, what was the one that went do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do? I think it's that. Yeah, it's like Percolator song, but do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And he goes, that's cool, let's use that. And then we had a verse, brought it to Desmond. Desmond's like, I don't know what this is. So he goes, what's it about? Where's it gonna go? And I had no idea. And Alice started coming up. He's a good lyricist. And then Desmond worked his magic on the pre-chorus and the choruses, which are basically the same chords he used on Bon Jovi songs, but modulated that pre-chorus. I was trying to learn it again the other day just for fun. And it's crazy. It's like, I don't even know what circle that goes. So you probably know more musically theory-wise.
It's the circle of fifths.
It is.
So yeah, that's something like you'll learn in music theory right off the bat, and you're kind of just following, like the dominant chord progressions. Right. And so basically, what's so cool about that pre-chorus is he modulates there, and then he kind of just rides that till he gets back to D again. Yeah, and then once the circle of fifths goes from A, then it jumps back up to D again. You're just back there.
I know. Yeah, I know. He was on the piano for hours out there while we were sort of waiting to maybe record something, and he kept trying to. He was getting very frustrated that he couldn't get to the chorus without ending up in a different key from the verse.
Yeah, and that and the riff are the most striking parts of the song, because the riff too it's in the major key, and then the verses go to the minor, and it has that kind of really dropping down effect.
Yeah, because I just spread my fingers as far as I could and said, what about if I do this whole tone, wherever that is, and the thing where you. And it was funny on YouTube now, I've noticed there's a bunch of people that are teaching people how to play it. Yeah. And I looked at it one day, I was like, this guy's doing an amazing thing, but it has nothing to do with the way I played it. I'm like, I wish I'd thought of that. That's kind of economical, but, better picker than I am, so.
And so then how did that song advance really into the production stages, and how involved were you in terms of
on the record, he had other not producers. I think Desmond produced everything, but there were other bands that they went to L.A. and there was a guitar player that Alice used to work with named Kane Roberts, whom I've become very close with. He was like a bodybuilder.
He had like a
roid
solo
rage guy.
career, right?
Yeah, and I worked on his solo record
yeah.
with Desmond, and he was big in Japan. But he's still a good friend. He's a little younger than me, probably late 50s. And we met out there because he hated me because who's this asshole in New York that's playing with Alice? And it was me. And he did some songs like Hell on Fire, like other weirdo songs that are on the record. But I'm Your Gun and Poison, the songs that I co-wrote. All the guitars in me, and even some bass stuff that I overdubbed.
Then what about the vocals?
Vocals, I'm singing on the Poison, but so are like 100 other people.
Those vocals are insane.
Yeah. I'm serious. Desmond used to put so many vocals on stuff that it would start to sound like two guys again. I remember an engineer saying to him, Desmond, if we keep doing this, it's just going to get down, because I think we were 48 track then. I don't even think we were digital. We were just two analog machines tied together. And Desmond would just like go crazy.
You've done all this amazing stuff. What's your life like now? I mean, what are you up to now? Back to the accordion?
Actually,
how many instruments do you play, by the way?
Accordion, guitar, and keyboard. I play one-handed pretty well because of the accordion. You know, I'm always looking for the buttons underneath, and there's none on the piano. And then bass, and I think I play bass pretty. I've been told I play bass by other bass players whom I love, that I don't even play. You know, a lot of guitar players can play bass, right? But I've been told by guys like Will Lee, the guy from the Letterman show, and Neil Jason, and some other people, he said, you could play bass. And I'm like, that's what I wanted to play when I started playing guitar as a 21-year-old. I always heard bass, I felt it more, just stuff like that. I work a ton from home, sitting on my couch, which is not even as big as this one. So Pro Tools is both a blessing and a curse, and I work it pretty well. For an old dude, and my girlfriend and I work together. We've done some work in commercials and songs and stuff like that. We're doing that, and I send stuff sometimes I do a lot of hip hop work through Dre, Dr. Dre's production company. And they send me tracks to do, just anonymous things for their producers and writers. I was told as long as no one sees me, it's all good. Which I like, as it should be. It's about time. It should be turned around.
That's cool. Like, what kind of stuff did you do? Like, do they want guitar
sample
stuff
groove? It could be
stuff?
and just
groove stuff.
And just play create a sample or something sampleable, I guess. So it's original, so it doesn't have to be licensed.
Oh, cool.
I think it just makes it a little easier to piece stuff together.
Yeah.
And it's not for him particularly; it's for other kids that work for him. He has a lot of production teams.
Yeah. Not
just West Coast, but. Chicago. He's got guys in New York too.
Being that you're so like expansive on your, it's like the creative palette between playing guitar and bass, because I play bass.
Oh, cool.
So even just listening to the parts in Alice Cooper's song, it was like very melodic in the sense that you're not following the same guidelines. Like, I'm assuming that's why the bass players like, oh, you play like a
lyrically, yeah. I mean, as a bass player, I liked John Bonham in Zeppelin, and I loved Paul McCartney. I like the lyrical stuff. So I tend to sound like I'm doing that when I probably shouldn't, you know. But then I also like slap bass, like the guys I work with in the 80s when I first moved here was Will Lee or Marcus Miller.
Yeah.
And they were so great at this, so I figured out they showed me how to do that, and I was like, I love this. I could only do 4 licks, but if you don't use them too often, they seem good.
And if you were to create like a super group, who would you have play in your band?
Wow.
Dead or alive?
Yeah, dead or alive.
Dead or alive. Oh my gosh. Whew. Well, funny. This is when I get confused. Like, do I like pop, rock, just a guitar band? Because I think of Jeff Beck, and that's my personal little guitar loves.
Yeah.
But it's not really like the big art. It's like, I mean, it's art, but it's not like a commercial thing as big as. I think I'd like to work with. Sinatra. Jimi Hendrix. No, I'd like Jimi Hendrix to still be with us, because I feel like that was just a blip. He had so little time. He was only a few years older than you guys when he died. So Hendrix, John. I love the drumming of John Bonham on Led Zeppelin.
He's my favorite drummer.
Because he just played he had this big beat, like a sexy beat. It wasn't like the Who thing, which is like a Muppet playing. he had a pocket that was, I thought, so deep.
Yeah.
A lot of the R&B guys I worked for on records, they would always cite John Bonham. Who's that drummer with that band with the guy with the high voice? John Bonham, who also died too young. So John Bonham, Hendrix, we need a bass player now. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. It's a really good question.
You can pick yourself, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to go out and tour with those guys. They're too old. And they're dead.
Oh, my God.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Jeff Golub, too.
Yes, sir.
Because we both knew him. And I know that you knew him or met him early on when you came to New York.
The very first day we were both here.
Wow.
New Year's Eve, 1980, at a place called Kenny's Castaways on Bleecker Street that's closed now. And he had kind of long, cool hair. I like your hair. Good-looking guy, and a Hawaiian shirt. And I had a Hawaiian shirt and looked like I did then, but before the Lucille Bull hair. Basically a dorky red-haired guy in like I'm colorblind, but a green or blue Hawaiian shirt that my girlfriend thought looked good. And he looked at me and he said, "Hey, man." He goes, "Nice shirt." And I said, "You too." And I just looked at him. I didn't know if he was going to be mean to me. So I was just, he's a little bit bigger than me, and I thought, okay. And we played that night, sitting in with like different singers.
Cool.
And had the best. That guy was an amazing guitar player. It's what he didn't play that was so special, and it's the way he played the notes he played. I learned so much from him about what not to do, Not in life.
Yeah.
But he really helped my playing. I'm still an asshole. He made sure I knew that towards the end of his life, in an endearing way, I hope.
And did he help you at all in terms of getting started with, like meeting other musicians and
he did.
hooking you up with
right off
bands?
the bat. Everybody loved Jeff right off the bat, and so they would listen to him. And there was most artists, like some local artists up and down the coast. There's a guy named John Poussette Dart, who had a sort of a pretty good hit record in the late 70s, Amnesia or County Line or something. It was like a country Jonathan Edwards kind of thing. He wanted Jeff to play guitar, and Jeff said, "Try McCurry." So I kind of did like a tour up and down Boston, down to Washington, D.C. with him. And so that was before the bigger tours. I'm not counting it because we were like driving the van together, and in snowstorms. But I loved working with John Poussette Dart, and that was all due to Jeff. Jeff tried to get me on a lot of records, and did get me on a lot of records. And then I tried to hire him. In the 90s, I had a music company with a bass player named Neil Jason, and it was called Jam Music. It was to do mostly commercials and a few documentary, sound. And we would hire Jeff whenever Jeff was around. Jeff was with Rod Stewart then.
Yeah.
Whenever Jeff was in town. So it was a dream of mine to hire my best buddy and be able to pay him money then. They actually had budgets, and demos even paid the guy $200 or something, So Jeff was the type of friend who might, if I didn't see him for 2 years or speak with him, we just pick up where we left off. No, incriminating, like, "What happened, man? Where you been? What happened?" So.
Isn't that his guitar up there?
Yeah. Actually, we have that.
Oh, that's right. You have that. Is that in the video?
Yes.
I'm colorblind, so I couldn't tell what colors
it's used in the video.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell by the pinup girl under the bridge.
Oh, that's right. That's awesomeness.
Yeah.
That's got a really nice. Do you actually use that guitar? Do you like the neck well enough that you
I
can
use it
groove
a lot. I record with it.
You do?
Yeah.
I remember this. I have the other ESP. I have it here too. Did he put braille dots in this? No, he didn't.
No, he did. Yeah. I honestly, I've never had an ESP.
I wasn't
before,
a big fan, actually.
But I love the neck on this. I love the way it plays.
Are they still around?
Yeah, they are. I think they've really transitioned more towards kind of metal-y guitars.
Oh, they've really gone the full.
I think they've really gone, the full gent.
Well,
plays nice.
You ready to start playing? Because I'm getting antsy. I'm ready to play.
God, okay.
All right.
You're gonna help me relearn a song, aren't you?
Yeah.
We'll do our best.
Well, a lot of our early songs use that Desmond chord progression.
Sure, well, because that's the influence all from the 80s through the 80s.
Yeah.
But listen to Because of the Night, it explains everything.
Exactly,
perfectly.
no.
Patti Smith in 1975. Desmond had a band called Desmond Child and Rouge with a chick named Maria Vidal or something, curly-haired girl, and they sounded like Patti Smith, and that's what he was emulating when he came here.
It's crazy.
Cuban. Came from Cuba.
I noticed that. He loves that. That chord progression is his bread and butter.
Yeah. I said once you're doing it too closely to one of your other songs. He goes, "You can't sue myself, Bubba." Really, just trying to be helpful,
It's so funny. Okay, are we ready for Take It?
a cruel device. Your blood like ice. One look could kill my pain. Your thrill. I wanna love you, but I better not touch you. I wanna hold you, but my senses tell me to stop. I wanna kiss you, but I want it too much. I wanna taste you, but your lips are venomous poison. Your poison running through my veins. Poison. I don't wanna break these chains. Your mouth so hot, your web, I'm caught. Your skin so wet, black lace on sweat. I hear you calling and it's needles and pins. I wanna hurt you just to hear you screaming my name. Don't wanna touch you, but you're under my skin. I wanna kiss you, but your lips are venomous poison. Your poison running through my veins. Poison. I don't wanna break these chains.
That was good. Yeah, that was great.
What's that one called?
That was a good tune. Beautiful.
Put a 7 in.
What?
That's the 7 again.
Oh, yeah.
That's the chord that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. McCurry, you nailed that solo there.
Awesome.
I didn't know where I am.
Good.
Thank you.